and welcome to today's City Club of Boise virtual conversation about sustainability in Boise schools. I'm Dr. Katherine Himes, City Club of Boise board member, director of the McClure Center for Public Policy Research at the University of Idaho, and today's moderator. I want to welcome our radio listeners who will be joining us via Boise State Public Radio on KBSX 91.5 and its affiliates throughout Southern Idaho and Northern Nevada. This program is being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel as well. Today's forum is available for our audience in large part because of our City Club partners and sponsors. I would like to thank some of the organizations that help make our programs possible. Our premier sponsor is Northwest Nazarene University and the NNU College of Business. Our annual sponsor is the University of Idaho. We also receive support from our Forum Series sponsors, AARP Idaho, Bank of Idaho, Climatech Corporation, Echelon Group, Micron, Pacific Source Health Plans, Small Mine Development, and St. Luke's Health System. City Club of Boise receives grant funding from the Idaho Humanities Council. Thanks also to our media partners, which include Boise State Public Radio, 670 KBOI, Idaho Statesman, and Idaho Public Television, and our university partners, BSU and NNU. Finally, I'd like to thank the members of City Club of Boise, more than 500 individuals and organizations. If you're listening now and not yet a member, I encourage you to join today. Please remember that there will be an opportunity for our panel to respond to your questions today. You can use the question and answer function of Zoom. Just type your question in, or you can email it to morgan@cityclubofboise.org, and it will be provided to me. I'll do my best to present each question and may group similar inquiries together in the interest of time. On to today's topic. This summer, a local student reached out to City Club of Boise about an idea that students are interested in exploring. City Club board members walked the student through the process to assemble a panel, and we are so pleased to present today's discussion about sustainability in Boise schools. Here are our panelists. I'll introduce each panelist, and then they'll say a few words, and then I'll move on to the next panelist. So first we have Shiva Rajbhandari. Shiva is a junior at Boise High School and is passionate about climate justice and wildlife conservation. In his free time, he enjoys running in the Boise foothills, fishing and skiing, and as a native Idahoan, he hopes that future generations will be able to enjoy Idaho's outdoors the same way he has. Shiva, we're so excited that you're here, that you brought this idea to City Club of Boise, and we're really eager to learn what's happening in Boise schools.
Wow, thank you, Katherine. It's so cool to be on this panel. I'm 17 and I've been involved with the climate justice work in Idaho since I was, I think, 14. And that's when I founded the Green Club at North Junior High. So I think my role on this panel today is to kind of lay out why students care about sustainability in schools. And I think everyone here probably understands why my generation consistently rates climate change and pollution as the #1 and #2 most important issues. In our short lifetimes, we've seen increasing and intensifying natural disasters from huge fires and droughts in the West, massive storms and flooding in the South and East, all while our elected officials refuse to face this crisis head on and take sufficient action to prevent it and mitigate its effects. And even now, I think this comes at like a really good time because world leaders are gathering in New York for the UN General Assembly. And the promises that were made during the Paris Accords back in 2016 still are just kind of pipe dreams. In Idaho, the climate crisis barely even has a voice. So why am I here? I think my climate story kind of has two parts. First, like all my peers in Boise, I'm growing up in the 13th fastest warming city in the country. I've experienced, as we all have, blistering heat waves during the summer, inconsistent snow at Bogus, Sun Valley, and Brundage each year, declining salmon and steelhead returns due to hotter streams, sporting practices and events canceled due to unhealthy air quality each fall. And so that's kind of where it comes from here in Boise. And it also, the second part is looking across the world to my family in Nepal. That country is being hit equally hard by this crisis and is less equipped to handle it. The Himalayan ice sheet is receding further and further each year, and it's threatening to unleash a water crisis so severe it'll destabilize the entire Indian subcontinent. And it's an untenable situation, and I feel somewhat helpless to stop it. I think many students, myself included, are often paralyzed by the guilt and anxiety of our climate future. So talking with my peers, kind of a common theme is that as youth, we are disenfranchised and our voices are rarely taken seriously, meaning that it often feels that all we can do is watch our world and our futures burn. And I kind of felt this way until I joined the Idaho Climate Justice League about 2 years ago to spearhead the Green School Initiative in Boise. And I met a diverse, competent group of students with similar experiences as me, all looking for ways to make a difference and find a way out of the weight of the climate change inaction that our elected officials are kind of putting on us. So today we're here asking the Boise School District to make a clean energy commitment. Help us make a difference by committing to 100% clean electricity by 2030 and 100% clean energy in all sectors like transportation, heating, and cooking by 2040. And to achieve this goal and make sure that it's economically feasible, we request that the district approve a long-term sustainability plan crafted by a committee of stakeholders like those represented on this panel. So why the Boise School District? Well, Boise Schools is one of the largest institutions in Idaho. It has over 50 schools through which over 25,000 students, teachers, and staff walk through every day. And in 2021, so this year, the district agreed to join as a partner with the City of Boise's Climate Action Roadmap, which committed to 100% clean electricity by 2035 and 100% carbon neutrality citywide by 2050. And the writers of that plan actually seeked out the Boise School District and the Idaho Power as well, which I'm glad is also represented on this panel. Because without buy-in from these large institutions, those goals, those aggressive goals are unattainable. So what does this kind of look like for Boise schools? What is my vision? It doesn't have to be like this wrecking ball to older buildings, throwing out HVAC systems, getting rid of fluorescent lights. And in all honesty, that would probably be worse for the environment because of all the waste that it would create. Instead, what I see is this decade-long kind of slow transition. As roofs need replacement, let's put solar panels on the new ones. As HVAC systems break down, let's replace them with newer, cleaner heating and cooling systems. And when we raise and rebuild entire schools, let's make sure sustainability is considered at least in new designs to accomplish the big goals that we've set for our district, and that we give contracts to companies that promise to align with the mission of clean energy and carbon neutrality. And we can do all of this and save money. We just need to set goals and craft a plan to achieve them. Otherwise, it's unattainable. So where's kind of the precedent, right? Well, in other school districts, these similar commitments have been made. In Batesville, Arkansas, schools saved $300,000 after achieving district-wide clean energy standards. And then they used that money to give all their teachers a raise. Right now, Boise Schools budgets over $5.2 million each year for utilities. And according to the University of Idaho Integrated Design Lab, we could save up to 50% of that, $2.6 million each year by making a long-term plan for energy and materials use. So commitments have been made also in cities like Seattle, Miami, Madison, Portland, Carson City, all across the country. And the way I see it, Boise Schools already leads the state in test scores, sports, and highly qualified teachers. Why don't we become leaders in sustainability and show legitimate concern for the world students are graduating into? So I'm just super excited to be a part of this panel and be represented with all these great panelists, and I'm looking forward to the conversation that we're going to have. So thank you, Katherine.
Shiva, thank you so much. Your enthusiasm is very clear, and the goal that you just articulated, really commendable, and the savings. You as students very much have done your research, and you just mentioned that this has been done in other schools. And so it's a perfect transition to our second panelist. I'm really pleased to introduce Arya Barkesseh, who is actually joining us from 7 time zones away. Arya graduated from West High School in Salt Lake City, Utah, and Shiva mentioned that that's one of the schools that actually had a similar sustainability initiative. Arya is at the London School of Economics now in England, and worked on West High School's effort to incorporate sustainability practices while he was a student there. Arya, we're so interested in what you and your colleagues did in Salt Lake City. If you can share with us anything about the cost savings, the challenges, the opportunities, if you worked with local power company, how you mobilized this whole process.
Yes, thank you so much. And I'm so excited to reflect on this experience, especially with Boise, which is a city that's so similar to Salt Lake City, also, given the geography and all of that. So, hi, my name is Arya Barkesseh, and I'm currently a sophomore studying history with geography at the London School of Economics. I attended West High School in the Salt Lake City School District. And in my senior year, which was the 2019 to 2020 academic year, several good friends of mine who were fellow officers of my school's environmental club worked with the Utah Sierra Club chapter and Climate Parents to lead this clean energy campaign. We were motivated by hearing about other school districts elsewhere in the US, in Los Angeles, in Reno, in New York, who have passed successful clean energy resolutions, and we wanted to bring that change to Utah. We knew that school districts can be very polluting and energy consumptive, and factor in Utah's significant air pollution crisis and these emerging environmental problems that Salt Lake City is facing as one of the fastest growing cities in the nation. We as high school students wanted to enact change before we graduated. I remember the project spanned my entire senior year. We started the summer before senior year started, and we went right up until the end of June 2020, right after graduation. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit in March, that was at first a blow to our progress, and we had to quickly adapt to transfer everything online and all of our communication. But it fared very easily because the fantastic thing about our campaign was that I think we were at it digitally before we knew that we would be on Zoom. We had such a great digital network of parents and younger high school students and local environmental chapters all across the city and the state. We were able to meet our goals still within our original framework of time and pass our resolution in June, just after graduation. Over the course of senior year, we were never at rest in drafting our resolution and communicating with the district board. By June 2020, our team has expanded from just me, Carly from Sierra Club, Lisa from Climate Parents, and my 3 fellow officers from our school's environmental club, to including a team of several people from Sierra Club, Climate Parents, Utah Yes, and other local environmental chapters, and also several other high school leaders and students from other local high school environmental clubs. And with all of our backgrounds together, we came to represent much of the Salt Lake City School District. Lisa from Climate Parents and Carly from Sierra Club were of immense logistic help for helping us push forward our goals, guide us through the challenging logistic process of drafting this resolution and navigating the school district bureaucracy, which is very alien to many of us just ordinary high school students. I think one important attribution to the success of our resolution was just how transparent and communicative we were as students with our school district board. We reached out to meet with each school district board member months before our first resolution was even drafted, and we informed them of our goals, our intentions, and what their thoughts were. Keeping them involved throughout the process senior year was so valuable and key to making this entire campaign truly collaborative between us students and the school district board and other third parties. It eliminated the element of surprise when we went to that June 24th meeting, forwarding our resolution. And because 8 out of the 9 school district board members at the time, they met with us and they were aware of our intentions, and they discussed the resolution with us, and and we were able to talk to them about the ability for it to be enacted. It was relatively easy meeting with all of them. We contacted them via email, via phone number, and we regularly met with them at coffee shops or at our schools. And I think that was able to make our relationship with the school district board 9-10 months even before we would propose our resolution very cooperative. And we followed up with each member in the springtime after our very comprehensive research phase for the drafted resolution, and we asked them to voice their further concerns. Finances, I definitely remember, were by far the largest logistical concern and holdback for the resolution for my school district. And I imagine it would likely be for school districts all across the nation. But after intense research on the logistics and economics of the resolution, plus meetups and advice from the school district lawyers and energy experts employed by the school district, we were able to create a sustainable and financially viable answer to the concerns of the school board. One thing I love about our resolution is just how organic it was. It was clearly written by us students and with us students in mind. And it acknowledged the pending environmental issues that we all see in Salt Lake City when we see the inversion on our morning commutes to school. And several points were addressed, including transportation and school bus use, energy consumption, and gas in district buildings. And I think despite the dramatic economic anxiety that we had at the beginning of the pandemic, this campaign was proposed at, I think, no other better time. When the pandemic started, the district was in current reconstruction plans for new buildings, and the Clean Energy Campaign was convenient in setting a new precedence for how the district would operate in the future. I remember in June how much we celebrated virtually when the district board unanimously passed our resolution, marking a 2030 commitment to 100% clean electricity, and then 100% clean energy in all other energy sectors by 2040. And this was for our school district of 25,000 students, K through 12, all over Central Salt Lake City. I remember celebrating with our supporters, the parents, the younger high school students, the local environmental chapters, who all followed our journey thanks to our tremendous and far-reaching social media and petition marketing campaign. After finishing my first year at university, I'm very grateful that I've been able to serve as a helping hand for other Utah school districts, including Granite, and seeing them follow Salt Lake in the clean energy movement in our schools is brilliant. To me, it's the embodiment of the power and will that us youth have to get things done and to make our communities cleaner, greener, and healthier for the future students of Salt Lake City, of Utah, and the greater United States. Thank you.
Arya, thank you very much for walking us through your year-long push to this resolution, illuminating the meetings that you had with school board members, building those relationships, the research you did, conversations with lawyers, the energy experts, and then the culmination of a unanimous vote. I think that that's really helpful to understand what this looked like on the ground for the students who were involved, but how you built this coalition. We're going to turn to our third panelist now, Chris Taylor. Chris is the Science and Sustainability Supervisor for the Boise School District. Chris, interestingly, has taught all grades 2 through 9 and teaches as an adjunct faculty at Boise State University as well. And I think Chris is going to give a perspective from your work with the students and your role in sustainability in the Boise School District. Chris, thanks so much for being with us.
Yeah, thank you, Katherine. And thank you just for giving me the opportunity to talk about something I'm really passionate about too, just like these two amazing students. What I thought I would talk about just to start with is where we have come through sustainability in our district and how we even got there. About 4 years ago, our then Deputy Superintendent, current Superintendent, Mr. Dennis, came up with a great idea just to give us a vision statement of to create a sustainable and equitable environment for all. He met with me and met with our facilities supervisor and just talked about we need to start building more sustainability practices in our district. So we created 4 pillars of sustainability that we always focus to. One is reducing energy, which we've heard today, to improve environmental quality of our buildings. One is looking at reducing waste. Schools, we have a lot of waste, both in food and in paper. Exploring water conservation practices. How can we conserve one of our most valuable resources here in Idaho? And then the 4th one is really supporting those initiatives to do that educational piece of sustainability and climate science in our schools, K-12. So with those 4 pillars, we then decided, let's get a committee together. And our first committee meeting had 3 people. And myself, a facilities supervisor, and a principal. Last week, we had a sustainability committee, 4 years in the process. We had over 40 people on our committee now, which is just amazing. We have, of course, a lot of staff people like teachers, administrators, food service facilities, but we also have so many community folks that have just jumped aboard. Not only do we have parents and patrons, but we have Idaho Power representatives, we have City of Boise representatives, we have a national group, the United States Green Building Council that helps us with the building portion of that. And our most important asset are students. Students are always at our committee meetings, and they're the ones that really we try to empower to come up with these great ideas like Shiva has with this resolution. They bring those to us as a committee, and then like Arya said, we try to figure out financially and some of the politics we have in our district of what we can do. And I wanted to share just a couple of the things the students have brought with us in the last couple of years that we have done in our district, because I truly believe our district is the leader in schools and sustainability in our state. We no longer use styrofoam plates in our schools, in our lunchrooms. I mean, that was a huge one. That was student driven. We have, we've been working on research. Students have been researching drought tolerant grasses, looking at this buffalo grass. It doesn't take as much water, but it still stands up to kids on the playground. We've got smart strips in many of our buildings now to help reduce energy. The students came up with power down days and winter shutdowns. And what those are is during Earth Day, all 50 of our sites look at ways to conserve energy. Kids are outdoors learning. They're doing it without lights on. They're going out to the local gardens and farms and doing community service. Again, all these are student driven. So that is one of the big things I bring on is I want students driving what we're doing. We need to be pushed. There's no question about it. Understanding that there are other things we've got to do in our schools, but we want to be pushed with sustainability. The other thing I just wanted to mention, because I know Theresa might talk a little about this, is in these last 4 years, we've been in a project with Idaho Power and a company called Strategic Energy Group. And we've been working with 10 of our schools and really doing what Shiva's asked about saving energy, focusing on our climate. And I just have some data here because I'm really passionate about data. I mean, before we come up with our plan, we've got to have the data to show that. And in the 4 years in our 10 buildings, we have saved over 6.5 million kilowatt hours of energy, which is impressive. Take that to financially, we're close to saving $400,000. And again, just 10 of our 50 sites. And then a big one for me is a carbon footprint. Like, are we doing something with a carbon footprint? And looking at this, metric tons of carbon footprint, over 2,000 metric tons of carbon footprint we have saved putting into our atmosphere. So having those components, I feel like we're doing many things with sustainability in our district. I know we can always do more, and that's why we need our students to push us on that. Last thing I want to say is our school board is all into sustainability. They have been so positive and supportive. We have sustainability in our strategic plan. I don't know if many districts can say that. One of the goals of this year, again, student driven, is we're trying to get more green teams, more students involved. We have about 20 of those in our 50 sites right now. And our high school students are working with our feeder schools, our elementary schools, to build more of those. Because we know if we can start at a younger age and get this culture change, that's what we want. We want a culture change in our schools. That happens at a younger age. So I'm excited about the conversation we're going to continue to have, but I'm really proud of our district and the initiatives we've done with sustainability. Thank you.
Chris, thank you. I think it's so helpful to hear all of these other elements that have been happening in your district besides the resolution, right? The resolution just didn't come out of thin air. You've been really intentionally engaging students, challenging the students to tell this committee that you've established the different ways that energy can be conserved, and then keeping the data, having that information available about the energy savings, metric tons of carbon, and so forth. So thank you very much for sharing with us what's happening on a daily, monthly basis in the school district. I'm going to turn to our fourth panelist. Our fourth panelist is Theresa Drake. Theresa leads research, development, and implementation of customer satisfaction initiatives and customer programs, including energy efficiency and electrification at Idaho Power. Under her direction, Idaho Power's programs have helped customers save a record amount of energy as the company works toward its goal of providing 100% clean energy by 2045. Theresa, thanks for joining the panel today. We're really excited to hear about Idaho Power's connection to Boise schools and other schools and sustainability efforts.
Thanks, Katherine. I'm happy to be here. It's so exciting to hear all of the enthusiasm so far during this panel. And hats off to the students and Boise School District. You guys have done a fantastic job of moving the needle forward. I'd like to share just briefly a little bit of background about Idaho Power. I'm not quite sure if everybody in the audience is aware. Idaho Power is an investor-owned public utility serving parts of Idaho and Eastern Oregon. And as a public utility, we're regulated by the Public Utility Commissions in both Oregon and Idaho. We're proud to serve over 560,000 customers, and those customers are residential customers like you are in your homes, commercial customers like schools and buildings, and industrial customers, agricultural irrigation as well. And we endeavor, and we're really proud to serve our customers in the most safe, with safe power in a very reliable economic way that's affordable for all of our customers. It's really important to us that we keep those in mind as we move forward. As such, we have set a goal of 100% clean energy by 2045, and we're planning to do so by being able to continue to have that reliability with our customers and also affordability. We're actually making great progress towards that. We have almost half of our energy mix is with clean hydro. We also have a variety of other resources in our mix. And we are looking forward for the next 25 years to what those technologies might be on the horizon to bring into our system in an affordable way. We've got our eyes set on grid improvements, solar, as well as battery storage, new technologies. And one of the key components that Chris talked about was energy efficiency. And we're really excited about helping our customers save energy and the wise use of energy as well. One of the processes that I'd like to remind people about is how is it that we plan for energy and the energy needs and the energy mix. And our utility goes through a process called an integrated resource plan, or an IRP. And it's a 20-year look at based on what customers use today for energy and what that future projection is going to be. As most people know, Idaho has experienced a lot of growth recently. So this is our planning process to make sure that we have resources to supply the power, not only today, but in the future. That our integrated resource planning process gets refreshed every 2 years. And by doing that, we're able to stay on top of new technologies and make sure that we're watching prices come down on some of the other technologies that might have not been affordable before, as we package a mix of resources to make sure we're satisfying our customers. One important part of that is energy efficiency. And when we think about energy efficiency, we think about it as the wise use of energy. So to prevent waste, right? So we want customers to use energy. We just want them to use it in a wise way. And one of the things that we think about is energy that's not wasted. So for every kilowatt that isn't used, so it's prevented from being wasted, is one that doesn't need to be produced with power and sourced with power supply. So what that means is that we can do whatever we can to make sure we're using energy wisely, preserve resources, and then also save energy and dollars for our customers, which is pretty exciting. I'm really proud to say that we are recognized for our energy efficiency leadership efforts by the governor of Idaho a few years ago about being good stewards of energy efficiency and helping customers like the Boise School District and other customers save energy with our programs, our research, our education. We have financial incentives to help customers save energy. In fact, last year, our customers saved over 196,000 megawatt hours of energy, which converts to about 17,000 average homes. So if you think about that, 17,000 homes worth of energy was saved just last year alone through our programs and our energy efficiency efforts with our customers. So we're really excited to be able to provide energy advice to customers, help them with programs and offerings. Chris and his team have been engaged with our programs for about 4 years with the cohorts, and being able to bring parties together to learn from each other on low cost or no cost ways to make it sustainable and help them meet their goals is something that we're happy to do. So thank you for having us here today.
Theresa, thanks so much for talking about energy efficiency, touching on the partnership with the Boise School District, and really describing more about energy in Idaho. That's such helpful content for our listeners today. Before we turn to questions, I just want to remind our radio listeners that you are listening to a City Club of Boise virtual conversation about sustainability in Boise schools. So we have a good number of questions, but I think one thing that would be really helpful for our audience is what's come in so far. People really wanting to understand, what do we mean by a metric ton of carbon? Like, how much savings is that? Or when we talk about a kilowatt hour, what does that really mean? So I think before we dive into more of these process questions and so forth, people really want to understand what's the magnitude here? Like, are we really moving the needle? What does that look like? And so I'm not sure, Theresa, if you want to take this question, or Chris, or one of our students. So I'm kind of looking at you to see who's unmuting and who wants to talk about, like, what's really the impact. So far, no one's taking the question. Uh-oh. So if you...
I can tell one thing. I don't know. Theresa might be better with the kilowatt hours, but I can tell you on our power down day last year. So this was when 50 of our schools decided to really conserve energy that day. Idaho Power did some data for me. And on that day, we saved 150 kilowatt hours, which what I was told was a little over, I think, 20 homes, like for a year period of time. So that's sort of how I've sort of put it into perspective. But I don't know if Theresa can add to that at all or not.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to find my unmute, Katherine. Yeah, thank you, Chris. And I think just thinking about the statistic from just last year's results, it's similar to what Chris is talking about. So when we have 196,000 megawatt hours of energy saved, if we would like to convert that into the number of average homes and the average use of a home for a year, and that would equate to about 17,000 average homes in our service territory. So it really doesn't have to be terribly complicated. It's just, when you think about a kilowatt and over an hour is a kilowatt hour saved, it can really make sure that that kilowatt doesn't need to get produced from an energy standpoint.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask the same question of every panelist. I think it's something you all described in your opening remarks, but we would love to know more about what this really looks like. And that's, there's a collaborative process, right? You all talked about working with lots of different entities, whether it's students and parents, school district and energy partners, nonprofit organizations. So I think talking a little bit more about whether it's thinking about a collaborative process or many hands, it takes the village to make this happen. And so Shiva, I'm going to turn to you first to talk about what is this really looking like in the Boise School District. And I think one of the reasons this question is so interesting is because there are other schools that are joining the conversation today. There are students, there are people like Mr. Taylor, there probably are some energy folks as well, wondering like, okay, how do I actually start to make this work? How do I assemble my coalition or my collaborative process? How do I figure out who are the stakeholders? So it'd be really helpful to learn more about that.
Yeah, so we started, 2 years ago with, I think, a group of like 5 students from Boise High and I think Timberline. And we quickly expanded to cover all 4 quads, Boise, Timberline, Bora, and Capital, and included junior high students in kind of our organizing. And the decision to go 100% clean energy, actually, it has to come from the board, which are the elected officials who, Idahoans elect to manage funds and decide how our Boise schools operate. But there's like definitely several layers of bureaucracy below that board that analyze, how we can effectively do that, how much money it's going to cost, when's a good time we can do that. And so that kind of started our conversation, talking to teachers and asking teachers, how do you feel about sustainability? Asking students, like what do you want to see in your schools to prevent the climate crisis? And then we started meeting with our our district leaders, so our principals, Chris Taylor, who has been a really great mentor through all of this, and then with board members. And I think the decision-making process is really hard to understand, but it's something that we're learning a lot, I think, as students and with mentorship from Chris and through this process. So I think, yeah, I'd be interested to hear more about how Arya kind of achieved that in Salt Lake City, because and got more traction with their board members and had these critical conversations in kind of a more efficient manner.
Thanks, Shiva. Arya, let's turn to you.
Yeah, so just to preface the question again about the collaborative nature of the project.
Right. I mean, even though students, it sounds like we're very much at the center, this was very much student driven. You mentioned a lot of entities in Salt Lake that were involved in this in your school district, outside your school district, and just understanding more about how you work through that collaborative process, what it looked like, because I think there are, we actually have an interesting comment that came in just as we were touching on this question. And there's somebody who's joined us from the healthcare system and really interested in what could this look like in healthcare facilities in Idaho. So more of this, like, how do you actually get it done? What does that collaborative process look like?
Yeah, so definitely I just want to start off by saying that we wouldn't have been able to get that resolution passed if it wasn't for the collaborative nature. It was so key to the way to facilitate the continuation and facilitation of the campaign that, like, if it wasn't for so many people that we didn't even know played a role or were very knowledgeable about this, about passing a clean energy bill, because it's phenomenal that we kind of thought at first that this would be a resolution that could maybe be passed on maybe a smaller scale, and then learning that it took the work of energy experts that worked with our school, but then also worked with the district, and then district lawyers that helped us go through like the very key fine print of our resolution, and how does that play out with the logistics and the capabilities that the school district can do under the Utah State Legislature and the mayor. And so it's amazing that we were able to interact with like the district board bureaucracy on so many levels. And then also, if it wasn't for these third parties that had experience before, like Sierra Club and Climate Parents, they were able to help us and guide us through what this very scary territory. So I guess I'm so grateful for just how collaborative the entire campaign was, and also just how it was very, it was a precursor to, I think, how we thought that we were going to need to mobilize campaigns like this in the future in the COVID-19 pandemic, because we didn't realize just how digital we needed to get to communicate with so many people, and how we needed to be in so many different places at once across the city. And I can't be like in more awe about how we were able to get that all done. So I think communication, and I think the power of not even just simple emails, but a social media campaign and a wide-scale digital petition campaign to just even get everybody in the city and within the school district's boundaries just even thinking about what we wanted to do. That was powerful enough that we were able to have such a amazing school district board Zoom with so many people on Facebook Live watching, trying to see, is this going to get passed? And being able to update that email list of 1,000 plus people that were following us on our journey. It was just fantastic. And I think it's such a great vision of just how much community matters when you're mobilizing for this clean energy movement in our schools.
Thank you, Arya. Chris, same question for you, talking about the collaborative nature of this work, how you've brought stakeholders together. What has this looked like in the Boise schools?
Yeah, I feel really blessed living in this community because there are so many community folks out there that actually came and reached to me. And students helped cause some of those relationships for me. I mean, I feel like my door's always open. I always want to be a reflective listener and have those conversations with them. But I mean, like I said, when we started with 3 people on our committee to now we're 40, and we've got partners playing. Funny you said about the healthcare. I got an email this morning from somebody at a healthcare institution in Boise and said, we want to know how to start a sustainability committee at our group. So I just think Boise is like that. I think you have these connections out there, and we definitely don't want to do this by ourselves. We need a collective group of it. So that's how it's sort of grown for me, just conversations.
Thanks, Chris. Theresa, the same question for you. I know that you work on a lot of different initiatives with different groups, and there are these collaborative processes. So what does that look like from your side of things?
That's a great question. And similar to what Chris mentioned, we're really excited to be working with our communities, and there's a couple ways that we do that. The integrated resource planning process that I spoke of earlier, where we plan on how to bring cost-effective resources to our customers, it's a public process, and we have a group of industry leaders, local citizens. We've got different variety of environmental interests, part of that process to help guide us on what we can do and hear from each other. That exchange of information and that collaborative process gets to a better place. For our energy efficiency, we do the same thing. We actually have an advisory group that we convene on a regular basis that's made up of city representative, county representatives, residential customers, irrigation, low income, environmental groups, and all of those together, understanding where our limits might be, but also where those opportunities exist and what we're trying to accomplish in a cost-effective way for all customers. So convening a group that has some cross-function or cross-interest to really come together and share, to find some common ground and help move forward within the opportunities that are available for everybody. It's a nice collaborative process.
Thank you all for illuminating these different collaborative processes and how you work together with lots of stakeholders around sustainability. Before we turn to our next question, I would like to remind our radio listeners that you are listening to a City Club of Boise virtual conversation about sustainability in Boise schools. So to our next question, really thinking about what Arya mentioned in terms of building this online community, or thinking about how community engages online. I have this long list that the students mentioned of other districts, states, cities that have had some sort of sustainability resolution or other action in schools. You talked about Reno, New York, districts in Maine, Arkansas, Wisconsin. Arya is connected to a district in Salt Lake City. And I know that you, Shiva, in our planning conversations mentioned that this is happening internationally. But is there something that's taking place online that is students working together across the country on schools? Or Chris, when I come to you, kind of the same question, but thinking about, are there sort of the sustainability advisors that have some sort of group together online where you're exchanging ideas and saying, oh, this just came up for us, we want to try this there. And Theresa, I'll come to you for that same type of question, but thinking about, does Idaho Power connect with other companies to share, oh, this is coming from the healthcare system or the school districts. So Arya, I'll go to you first, thinking about this online community and our students engaging that way, and now you're at university, and so maybe you answer the question through that lens, or maybe it's back to what you did in Salt Lake.
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's a really great question. I would say that when I started in the 2019 academic year, I think it always felt like all these accomplishments that were going on across the nation were far away. We looked to Reno as kind of like, oh, if Reno could do it, so can we. They're very similar cities in that regard. But before I think we all became chronically in front of our computers on Zoom, it felt like a very isolated thing for us. We kind of thought, oh, well, if it's going on, we can mirror that. But there wasn't as much, I think 2 years ago compared to now, so much has changed. And now that there's a lot more discourse online about and an exchange of ideas about how to carry on with this clean energy movement than from when, in my time when I was doing this project. But I think definitely now at university, it's so much more evident and you can definitely see it. I think so many universities across the nation, across the world, across the UK, everyone I've seen has some sort of divestment alliance calling for their institutions to divest from fossil fuels and to adopt clean energy measures. And I love that at a university level, there is definitely a much stronger centralization of that discourse and a lot more logistical ease in being able to exchange these ideas and cooperate. Whereas at the school district level, we had to talk to the 8 other high schools in the district, and they were all across the city. And I think in that case, that makes the campaign even more meaningful because it was so rewarding at the end to see that like it wasn't just a West High school leading this campaign. It was East High School, Highland High School, Slicksea, and more. Than at a university level where it's just one university. But I think now we've been online now, the world, for a year and a half more. And I think that's been able to foster such a good and very well developed community of people across all these institutions that are working now to bring these divestment goals to their universities or to their schools. I remember last year I was communicating with universities in Singapore and elsewhere in Europe and in the States to bringing this clean energy campaign really into full effect at all of our institutions. And I really want to see like kind of that legacy of this pandemic now that things have changed a lot and what that's going to look like for the next few years. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Arya, thanks for drawing those comparisons between what you're seeing at universities and that exchange of information and maybe the focus of the work and how it's different at the high school and the district level and some of the different challenges there, but then the opportunities engaging online. Shiva, let's turn to you for the same question. We're really interested in your perspective.
Yeah, so I think that the youth climate justice movement is really remarkable because around the world we're seeing, this huge mobilization of especially young people. We just saw it last week with the global climate strikes in every country in the world. Millions of students walking out of school, demanding that our elected leaders at the UN General Assembly take action on climate change and take action on their Paris Accord agreements. But I think also that it's so empowering because we see what they did in Salt Lake, and we're able to have those conversations and learn how we can adapt that to fit for Boise. And it's really cool. I was on a call just last week with 50 kids from other countries across the world organizing in their school districts and in their cities for clean energy resolutions. Because frankly, the time is now to act on the climate crisis. And as students, we're looking around seeing our elected leaders, doing the bare minimum in many cases. And we're freaking out here. And so we're organizing and we're, I think, taking up arms in a way that we haven't probably in world history seen a youth movement like this. to fight for a livable future and a livable planet. And so, yes, the answer is yes. There's this huge coalition of students and mentors and stakeholders that are working on national campaigns, worldwide campaigns to decarbonize our economies. And Green Schools is just a part of that, but it's a really important part because school districts are these huge institutions, and they're government institutions, but it's kind of a hybrid. So they get to partner with organizations or companies like Idaho Power and organizations like the Climate Justice League and with students, and they're able to make changes and model changes not only that we can make in our governments, but also that we can make that corporations can then take on. For example, like at St. Luke's, they can take on this model of sustainability, having sustainability committees. And making a clean energy commitment because of that hybridization. And so I think that Green Schools is something that, especially the Sierra Club, but organizations across the country have been working on for a long time. And it's something that we're hoping will be included in the reconciliation, the $3.5 trillion reconciliation infrastructure bill, wherein actually there's money promised for school districts that have already made a commitment to help schools decarbonize and meet their goals. And that's kind of the urgency of this situation right here in Boise is we need to make a plan. We need to make a commitment because not only is time running out on the climate crisis, but also every minute we wait is a minute that we could have had a plan to replace HVAC systems and put solar panels on roofs, especially with that big bond that taxpayers voted for a few years ago, where we're now raising and rebuilding many schools, refurnishing schools. And I think that we have the opportunity right now in the Boise School District to really commit to sustainability and really show that, hey, we're not only educating today for a better tomorrow, we're protecting that better tomorrow by making decisions today and making plans today to decarbonize and ensure that students have, the same livable world that, that we've had for years that hopefully we'll also get. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, Shiva, that was great because you talked about what's happening nationally and internationally with students online, broad movements, but then also how sustainability in schools is situated within that. So I think it's really helpful to understand that maybe that doesn't get as much attention, maybe it hasn't been as visible, but why is it really important and how are students connecting, using the power of the internet. You mentioned the 50-person phone call, video call. That's just incredible. Chris, I'm going to turn to you for the same question. Thinking about how you connect with others in other school districts who do what you do, work with students in the same way. What does that look like?
A great question. Right before COVID happened, our district became part of the Green School Network, which is a network across the country of different schools that are trying to do this work. We went to a conference in Portland the week before we shut down our schools, and we had all these plans in place. I mean, again, using what students empower us to do. And then, of course, things changed and we've got some other things to focus on. However, I'm still part of that leadership group. We meet every other month and talk to schools. I mean, schools I've talked to a lot is Carson City, have done a lot of this work. Virginia Beach, which I think is probably the most sustainable district in the whole country, just hearing some things they've done. And working with some curriculum stuff with a district in Pittsburgh, same thing. So what's great for me is we don't have a lot of this in Idaho. I don't think there's another sustainability coordinator in a school in Idaho. So looking outside of our state and seeing what schools are doing, we really want to move to a commitment of clean energy. There's no question about that. What we need to do from our district standpoint, see what's out there, see what people are doing. That's why I love hearing what Arya is talking about Salt Lake. And then I'm a science guy. I want to see the data. So we're looking at data from all 50 of our schools. What are some of those pieces we can start doing? All the buildings we're building currently are solar ready. So we're ready. We have the infrastructure in place. So we're just going to continue that data and get that work so we can get to that commitment.
Chris, thank you for talking about the ways in which you're connected to others who advise students who are in sustainability positions, and the importance, especially if you're the only one in your state doing this work, of talking to others across the country. Theresa, let's turn to you. How are you connected, you at Idaho Power, with other utility companies, power companies, in terms of sharing these best practices, or learning about emerging trends like green schools and so forth?
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question. I'll answer it in two different ways. First, in terms of what the utility does, it's a fascinating industry to be in because we don't share the same competitiveness with each other that some other industries do, where they hold tight their secrets. We actually have great relationships with other utilities, not just in the Northwest, but across the United States. There's different consortiums that we belong to just for that reason. Information sharing, what ideas have worked in other parts of the country that we can bring back and see if it fits our model and be able to offer some programs here. So it's really connecting with our peer network that we have in other utilities and what they're working on, and what they've tried, and what we call little pilots, right? So where it's a trial, if you will, that's been studied, and usually there's a work paper that's produced on a pilot. Well, what can we learn from that and adapt and see how we can offer that here for our customers? So that's what we do on a peer-to-peer basis with other energy companies. And then with our customers, I'd like to go back to the energy efficiency cohort that the Boise School District has been part of. It's really for that purpose of convening different schools, different school districts together, and bringing them together, not just one seminar, but actually workshops, to where we've created energy models for them to learn from, and then they're sharing their own best practices. And since COVID happened, those are all been held virtually. So they're still happening, and they can take those lessons learned from others that are in that same industry and apply what they can back to their own facilities. And we have a similar cohort model for municipal water supply. So those that run municipal water supplies, and water's a big energy consumer, but also water user, coming together and sharing those best practices with each other. So we're convening that and helping them understand from an energy model standpoint, where are those deep opportunities for working within the boundaries they have within their quality settings that they need to maintain, but still be able to produce excellent results from efficiency standpoint. Wastewater is another cohort that we organize and help work through those same energy models. And again, it's a great way to bring communities together that have similar jobs, but just with different wastewater facilities, and learn best practices from each other that they can take back to their own facilities and implement.
Theresa, thank you for talking about how Idaho Power is engaged in an online community with other similar entities, but also then you're convening power on different energy topics. And so serving that function of creating that online community, or maybe it's more of a quasi-physical community in Zoom where they're together, on an online platform, for example. We have one last question where we've unfortunately run up against the top of the hour. But this question is about, what is the biggest roadblock to starting the conversation? And Theresa, I'm going to turn to you first. This perspective on roadblocks. If you're thinking about sustainability in schools, obviously energy is a player in this. So from your perspective, Theresa, what might be a big roadblock, a big challenge to get this going?
I think the word data has been brought up a few times. So I think having data to help guide the direction, so that whoever is pursuing something has the information available on hand to make good quality decisions that are long lasting. You want some change to be effective, but you want it to be effective for the long run. So being able to have data to help support that, I think, is something that's pretty critical in moving things forward.
Theresa, thanks for underscoring the importance of data and grounding it in evidence, and helping people to really understand the importance of the work. Chris, same question for you. What might be the single biggest roadblock or challenge to getting this started from your perspective?
Yeah, I'll ditto what Theresa said about data. One thing I really appreciate about Shiva, though, is he comes with his facts and his research, and I think that's super important also. The other thing, and I know it's tough, but we're an institution that's about learning, and this is part of the learning process, but we have a lot of other things too. I mean, with our pieces of learning loss with COVID right now, with social emotional pieces with our students and our staff. So it's a balancing effect. I am as passionate about Shiva about this topic as he is. Just knowing, and I heard the word bureaucracy so much, and I know there is parts of that. please keep working with us, and I will keep talking to Shiva on a weekly basis about things we can do. So I know there's going to be some roadblocks, but I always think those roadblocks can be moved. So I just want to continue that path forward.
Data and optimism. Great pieces of advice in terms of how do you surmount roadblocks. Arya, I'm going to turn to you next. From your perspective, what was the single biggest challenge or a roadblock that really needed to be moved to get through this process?
Yeah, I think just branching off the optimism. I think it's just the idea that we can do something. I think, yeah, I mean, to use the word bureaucracy again, there's this daunting aspect that you don't know where to even start. And I think like as the more and more that this movement continues and spreads across not only the nation, but the world, like the more that students feel inspired to take on that and to create change within their own school districts and their own world. So I think just, yeah, that inspiration, that optimism, and just knowing that you can start from somewhere is probably the biggest challenge. But the great thing is that that challenge is diminishing. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. The importance of seeing the example and maybe talking to that example that you saw.
Yeah.
Thanks.
If it wasn't for Reno, we probably wouldn't know how to even start. So, yeah.
Thanks, Arya. And Shiva, the final word from your perspective, the biggest roadblock in this or a challenge that seems insurmountable.
I don't think any of this is insurmountable. I would say that there's no roadblocks. I think we're ready to make 100% clean energy commitment. And I think that normally when I make goal setting, I tend to set the goal first and then come up with a plan to achieve the goal. And so I think, and I think we know just from Power Down days that, hey, it is possible to save a ton of money and get the whole school district to into the 21st century. So what's stopping us? I think data is definitely maybe a speed bump. And I would love to see more data collection and kind of getting a committee assembled to start, thinking about, okay, what do we have to do to achieve 100% clean energy? But I think we're ready. I think we've got, this huge student team, a ton of public support, a lot of public conversations, meetings with stakeholders. I think the Boise School District Board is ready to make 100% clean energy commitment. And I'm excited to be a part of that.
Thanks, Shiva, for telling us that roadblocks really are speed bumps. I want to thank our panel. I want to thank our audience today and our radio listeners for joining a City Club of Boise virtual conversation about sustainability in the Boise schools. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Katherine.